In every town, there are stories people whisper. Only when the room feels safe and familiar faces are around. So it doesn't spread beyond where it's meant to be heard. Here's a story of a mother, a daughter, and a love that crossed the prohibited line, titled Forbidden Desires. What happens when the heart of a mother begins to envy the joy she once prayed for her child? This is the story of Mama Nkem and the sin she wished never crossed her way. The town of Nkwume slept beside a lazy river. Evenings smelled of wood smoke and fried plantain. Children chased goats through the dust, women sang over pounding pestles. There lived Mama Nkem, a 58-year-old, graceful widow of a schoolteacher. Her only joy was her daughter, Judith, who had just married a young man called Obinna, strong of arm, gentle of tongue. To everyone, Mama Nkem was the image of strength. But in her quiet nights, loneliness pressed her chest like a wet cloth. Even an old drum can still echo when desire beats upon it. When Judith called, saying, "Mama, come and bless our new home," joy filled the widow's heart. She packed her wrapper, her Bible, and her late husband's rosary, symbols of love, duty, and memory. Arrival at the newly built bungalow. Judith runs out smiling, Obinna follows, bows respectfully, calls her Mommy. His voice carried both respect and warmth, and something in her heart fluttered, though she pushed it aside. For 3 days, laughter ruled the home. Mama Nkem blessed the union with stories and prayers. But on the 4th night, as the wind changed, another spirit entered the house, one that smells like perfume and guilt. Morning came with gold spilling through the mango leaves. The air smelled of soaked earth and fresh firewood. Roosters crowed like trumpets announcing a day that would not be ordinary. Obinna rose early to fix a broken chair on the veranda. The muscles on his back moved like waves beneath a calm river. Mama Nkem stood in the corridor, her wrapper tied loosely, watching, first with admiration, then with something she could not name. He looked like her late husband once did, steady, patient, and unbent by hardship. For a fleeting moment, she saw her youth again, laughter beneath palm trees, nights of dancing under lanterns, the feeling of being wanted. She smiled faintly, whispering, "May God bless him," but in the quiet of her heart, a voice answered, "You are not blessing him, woman, you are remembering." Desire does not always roar. Sometimes it begins as a sigh in the morning light, a quiet trembling that disguises itself as gratitude. When the eyes linger too long, the heart begins to wander. That was the first spark, gentle, innocent, but every fire begins with a spark no one takes seriously. That night, the moon hid behind thick clouds. The air carried the scent of coming rain. And inside the house, laughter floated through the thin wooden door, laughter of youth, of union, of love. Mama Nkem lay on her mat, smiling faintly at the sound. It warmed her heart, until her daughter's voice rose above the laughter. "You're too strong for me, Obinna, your style wears me out for hours." A pause, then laughter again, soft, private, intoxicating. At first, she turned away, covering her ears. But the heart has its own ears, and once it begins to listen, it refuses to stop. Her breath deepened. Her palms grew damp. She remembered how her husband once whispered in that same tone, before time stole those nights away. She prayed, "Lord, silence this storm in me." But prayer cannot silence memory, and memory is a dangerous storyteller. She turned restlessly, hearing every creak, every whisper, every sigh. And as her daughter's laughter faded into soft murmurs, loneliness pressed her chest like a jealous ghost. She rose, walked to the window, and watched the rain fall through the dim lantern glow. Each drop looked like a memory refusing to die. That night, temptation was not a man, it was a memory revived, a hunger that had slept too long and suddenly found breath again. A closed ear can save a soul, a curious ear destroys peace. And so began the war within, a war between a mother's conscience and a woman's desire. The rooster crowed 3 times, but sleep refused to return to Mama Nkem. All night, she had wrestled with her thoughts, thoughts that felt like strangers breaking into prayer. The first light of dawn crept through her window, painting her face in a pale glow, a face that once glowed for love, now shadowed by something unnamed. She heard footsteps outside, soft, deliberate. Obinna stepped out, shirtless, carrying a metal bucket to fetch water. Steam rose from his skin in the cold morning air. She froze, her breath trapped somewhere between fear and fascination. She whispered, "Lord, take away this thought," but her eyes refused to obey. The longer she watched, the heavier her chest became. Her lips trembled with words she did not understand. A strange warmth filled her, not the warmth of prayer, but the kind that shames you the moment you feel it. She rushed inside, singing an old hymn too loudly, "Abide with me, fast falls the eventide," but even her own voice betrayed her trembling. All day, she busied herself, sweeping, cooking, polishing the photo of her late husband. But guilt followed her like her own shadow. No matter how she moved, it stayed by her side. She paused before her husband's framed picture, whispering, "Forgive me, my dear. I am weak today." And for a moment, she thought the photograph's eyes grew sad. Temptation is not born in darkness. It is born in light, in moments of carelessness, when the heart mistakes admiration for love. By evening, she sat by the veranda, watching fireflies rise from the grass. Every time Obinna spoke, she smiled too long before answering. Every time Judith laughed, she felt a sting she could not explain. And that was how it began, not with touch, nor words, but with stolen glances and silent prayers that never reached heaven. When a goat begins to eat yam, it forgets the rope around its neck. Temptation does not knock loudly, it seeps through the cracks of longing, and grows roots where loneliness has made the soil soft. From that morning, peace became a stranger in Mama Nkem's chest. Each time Obinna spoke, her heart trembled like a drum under gentle fingers. She fought it with prayer, with fasting, with hymns, but desire is a visitor that hides under the name of concern. When Judith fell asleep, Mama Nkem lay awake, eyes open to the dark ceiling, whispering to God, "Take this away from me." But heaven was silent. She only wanted to hold her world together. But her heart had already become a prisoner to its own restless desires. One quiet night, she woke to a sound, a soft hum coming from the master bedroom. It was her daughter's voice. Her pulse quickened. She knew what that sound meant. Slowly, she crept closer, her feet cold against the floor. Through the narrow window slit, what she saw was overwhelming. The size of his dick and the drive, the raw strength with which he handled the escapade was second to none, compared to what she had experienced in her life. In that moment, guilt and longing tore her apart, and from that night on, she could no longer silence her conscience. One morning, Judith went to the market. The rain had not yet dried. Mama Nkem remained at home, humming as she cleaned. Obinna walked out of the bathroom, a towel around his waist. The moment froze, eyes met, heart stumbled. She turned away quickly, pretending to arrange a chair. But her breath came heavy, her thoughts heavier. When the wind begins to move the leaves, it warns the tree of a coming storm. Temptation seldom speaks first with the body, it speaks with flattery. Mama Nkem began to praise him too often. "You are strong, my son," she would say, smiling. "My daughter is lucky to have a man like you." Obinna laughed politely, unaware that words are the first hands of seduction. The devil does not always wear horns, sometimes he borrows the voice of admiration. That weekend, a neighbor's child was christened. Judith and Obinna took Mama Nkem along. There was music, dance, and laughter. But under Mama Nkem's wrapper, her heart drummed faster than the talking drum. She watched the way Obinna laughed with young men, how other women admired him, and a fire of jealousy kindled quietly within her. The python envies the fish, forgetting both live in water. That night, sleep refused her. She heard a voice, whether from conscience or spirit, she could not tell. "Flee from what burns the heart," it whispered. "Do not touch what belongs to your child." She woke up sweating, shaking her head. But in the morning, when she saw Obinna greet her gently, that warning melted like mist before the sun. Loneliness is a hunger that can make even the wise forget their years. On the 5th week of her visit, Mama Nkem began to wear brighter wrappers, oiling her skin, braiding her hair differently. Judith laughed and said, "Mama, you look young again." She smiled, hiding the reason why. At night, she dreamt of her youth, of dancing under palm trees, of being touched again, memories she thought buried. The hand that forgets its age will soon tremble with regret. Then came the night Judith left for a church women's retreat. Rain had started falling, heavy and loud. Obina stayed home reading. Mama Nkem entered the sitting room holding a lantern. "You shouldn't be alone in the dark," she said softly. The rain grew louder, lightning slicing the sky with consistent thunderclap. The air thickened with silence. Heavy rain, thunder, intermittent gust of wind. In that moment, words escaped before wisdom could stop them. She spoke of loneliness, of how her heart had been empty for years. She praised him again, her voice breaking, tears shining under lantern light. Obina tried to comfort her, placing a hand on her shoulder, but her tears drew him closer than reason allowed. That was the moment when the line disappeared. When pity dressed itself as passion, and decency drowned in silence. They did not speak after. The house went dark except for the candle trembling against the wind. What happened that night became the secret that would haunt two souls forever. The fire that warms the heart can burn the home if lit in the wrong place. The morning light entered like judgment. Obina avoided her eyes. Mama Nkem smiled nervously, pretending to wash dishes. When Judith returned, she hugged them both, thanking her mother. But guilt has a smell the innocent can almost sense. When sin sits between two hearts, silence becomes thunder. Days turned into weeks. Obina stopped joining family prayers. Mama Nkem prayed harder, tears soaking her Bible. She considered leaving early, but her pride whispered, "Stay. They will suspect you. The thief may hide in darkness, but his shadow walks before him in the." Whispers began in the neighborhood. The once lively home turned cold. Judith sensed something dying, but could not name it. Mama Nkem looked older by the day. The laughter that once filled the house had become a memory. That is how secrets grow, not in darkness, but in the silence between people who once trusted each other. Transition line, but truth, no matter how buried, will always find its way through cracks. In every neighborhood, truth travels faster than the wind. At first, it was a whisper behind market stalls. Then, it murmured at the well. Some said Mama Nkem's eyes lingered too long on her son-in-law. Others said they saw her walking from his room late one night. No one was sure, but suspicion is a smoke that enters even the cleanest homes. The year of the market never sleeps. Judith noticed changes, small at first. Her husband avoided her eyes. Her mother smiled too much when he entered. The warmth between them felt unnatural. One night, Judith woke and found Obina sitting outside alone, his face buried in his hands. "What troubles you, my love?" she asked. He said nothing, only tears answered. When the heart hides a wound, even silence becomes confession. That night, Judith couldn't sleep again and rose up later to fetch water. But voices drifted faintly from the sitting room, her mother's and Obina's. Their tones were low, uneasy, the kind used by people who carry a secret. She paused behind the wall, heart thudding, listening as Obina said, "We must forget that night," and her mother's voice trembled back, "God knows I didn't mean to." She backed away, mind reeling. When dawn came, she cleaned the bedroom to calm herself. But beneath the bed, her hand brushed something hard. It was her mother's earring, one of the coral earrings she wore every Sunday. She froze. Her chest rose and fell. The world felt suddenly smaller. Then, from the sitting room, her mother's voice floated softly, "Judith, are you all right?" But Judith did not answer. Because her heart had already answered. That evening, she confronted them both, her mother and her husband, in the parlor where laughter once lived. In every tale of betrayal, there is one moment when silence breaks. And the wound finally speaks its name. Days later, Pastor Is, an elder from the church, visited the home. He said a strange thing: "There is a spirit of lust moving in this house. Confess, and God will heal you." Mama Nkem's face froze. Obina's hands trembled. Judith was confused. But the truth had finally arrived, not as accusation, but as mercy. Truth is like palm oil, it always rises above the water. That night, unable to bear it any longer, Mama Nkem called her daughter to her room. She knelt down before Judith. Tears flowed like rain after the dry season. "My child," she whispered, "forgive me. I have offended heaven and you. I have defiled trust itself. Judith stepped back, confused, trembling. Obina entered the room, eyes red, voice breaking. It was me too. I could not resist her. I am sorry. That night, truth burned through the home like holy fire, cleansing, painful, unstoppable. The knife that cuts the yam cannot escape the stain. Judith wept, not only for betrayal, but for the death of trust. She wanted to curse them both, yet her tongue refused. Instead, she fell to her knees, crying out, God, why me? Mama Nkem fainted in guilt. Obina rushed to hold her, but Judith's cry cut through the night, a sound neighbors would remember for years. There are nights that change the shape of a family forever. By morning, Mama Nkem had left the house. She walked barefoot, through mud and rain, back to her village, whispering prayers of repentance. Obina begged Judith to forgive him, but her silence was colder than punishment. Weeks later, she moved back to her father's compound. The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. Months passed. Mama Nkem spent her days in prayer and service, caring for widows, confessing her sin openly to the women of her fellowship. Her shame became her teacher. Her tears, her cleansing water. In time, Judith returned, not in anger, but in peace. They embraced, mother and daughter, crying into each other's arms. Forgiveness does not erase pain, but it plants peace where bitterness once lived. Even the river that floods its banks still finds its way home. Years later, Mama Nkem became a counselor to young wives, warning them about loneliness, desire, and the power of control. She would say, my child, love your husband, but guard your heart. Respect your mother, but give her boundaries. Temptation wears many faces, sometimes even a familiar one. And so, the story of one woman's weakness became a fountain of wisdom for others. In the end, Mama Nkem learned that the fire of desire, if unchecked, can consume the home it was meant to warm. And so the people of the village said, when you desire what is forbidden, you destroy what you love. What would you have done if you were Judith? Would you forgive, or would you walk away? Tell us in the comments below, and remember, every secret has a shadow, and every shadow seeks the light. A tale of forgiveness, temptation, and the price of desire. Subscribe to African Mind Prints for more moral stories.